One of the most challenging things to establish in any landscape painting is mood, which is the emotional reaction that a viewer has when looking at your work. Mood is hard because it's not just one thing in the painting, but how all the elements come together to create a feeling. So in this video, I'll be walking you through how to create a mood in your landscape paintings using acrylic on paper. And if you'd like to follow along, I've made my reference photo available as a free download. Let's get started. The first step in creating a mood is to work on a colored surface. To begin, grab your sketchbook or whatever surface you'll be working on. I love working on paper because it's lightweight, portable, and allows me to keep all my painting studies together as a collection. I like to set up my sketchbook by taping the edges with painter's tape and priming the pages with gesso. Make sure the gesso is fully dry, then we're going to tone the surface and create a colored ground. For this piece, I've chosen quinacridone red, since the mood I'm after is one of warmth. One of the reasons painting on a color is so effective is because colored grounds unify your entire piece. When you paint on a warm surface like red, it's going to make the entire thing feel like it's glowing, even though we'll be covering it up with paint. The next step is to use a limited palette. For this piece, I'll be using alizarin crimson permanent, cadmium yellow medium, ultramarine blue, burnt umber, and titanium white. I've read your comments and I know you want to see more color mixing, so for this video, I'm including my palette in the overhead shots. And if you want to go deeper on color mixing, I've written a free 36-page ebook all about acrylic painting that you can download in the description below. Limiting your palette builds off of the colored ground and ensures that every single color in the painting works well together. So as I'm mixing my colors, I know that there's only one red, one yellow, one blue, so each color within the painting is just composed of the same pigments in different proportions. Color is deeply psychological. Reds and oranges are exciting and energetic when fully saturated, so if we want to capture that intensity but also a feeling of calm, we're going to want to tone down the chroma. You can do that by adding in the complementary opposite, which in this case is blue, or adding an earth tone like burnt umber to soften and ground the color. You'll notice as I'm adding the colors onto the colored ground that they are transparent and not doing a very good job of covering the red. This is normal, and if anything, the red is just exposing how weak the first layer is in terms of opacity. If you were painting on pure white, this would come across as streakiness, but here on the red, it immediately has more depth. Of course, what we can't do is judge an acrylic painting by its first layer. I typically do at least 2 layers on an acrylic painting, and what you're seeing here is just setting the stage for the second layer. With the second layer, the colors immediately go on brighter, even though I'm using the exact same colors as the first layer. This is also where we tie together our mood through value, color, and brushwork, all at the exact same time, so let's go through each one. Let's start with value, which is how light or dark a color is. As a general rule, we know that skies are the lightest section in any painting, which has to do with our values. So when we're adding in our various cloud forms, we need to make sure that they aren't too dark. Otherwise, the sky will look artificial. The more you compress your values, which means the less contrast you have between light and dark, the softer it feels. Then there's our colors. This sky is essentially variations of the same orange, just at different value and chroma levels. The clouds that look gray have just been desaturated, and the ones near the horizon were darkened, but the colors themselves are fairly restricted. As such, we have a lovely tone-on-tone feeling emerging, where everything feels calm because it's all in the same color family. Then there's the brushwork. You may have heard of hard versus soft edges before, where hard edges are sharp lines and soft edges are blended out. When you're creating mood in your work, you may choose more of a soft blended edge, even if that's not how your reference photo looks. Doing this makes your painting feel more dreamy and atmospheric. Even though we do want to preserve the forms of our clouds, we can still soften the edges so that they feel hazy. Now, this is easier said than done with acrylics. With oils, you have the luxury of an extended dry time, but with acrylic, I'm typically working wet on dry. By feathering the brush, which means that I can't have too much paint on the bristles, it creates the illusion of a blend, even though it's just thin layers stacked carefully on top of each other with softened edges. I also try to use the fact that acrylic dries darker to my advantage, since the paints go on bright, but feel like they're melting into the background as they dry. Let's take these lessons with us as we head into the water. I'm going to do a quick color mixing demonstration here for the main watercolor. I started with titanium white and burnt umber before adding some yellow and a hint of crimson to turn the warm tone orange. Because this was too vibrant, I added some blue to neutralize it. Keep adjusting your color by asking yourself, what is this missing? If it's too dark, add white or yellow. Too much chroma? Add the complementary opposite. Something difficult about painting water from a photograph is not getting distracted by all the tiny little waves that you can see in your reference photo. I would describe painting every single detail as a bit of a mood killer. Painting every detail favors precision over feeling, and unless it's executed perfectly, risks over-sharpening your work. To preserve your feeling of atmosphere, movement, and calm, we're going to focus on adding in large sections of simplified colors instead of worrying about little details. So when you're looking at your reference photo, squint and look at it from an arm's length. If you can't see the detail or the detail doesn't jump out at you, it's probably worth omitting. As we move into the waves, remember that the farther away an object is, the less contrast it has. The waves closest to shore have the darkest shadows, which helps it feel closer to the viewer and creates a hierarchy of near versus far in the work. So far, this entire painting has been dominated by warm tones, but as we move into the foreground, I'm going to add a hint of a cool tone to the foam on the waves. This color is barely cooled, but since it's against such warm oranges, it pops beautifully. This foam is reflecting the cool evening sky overhead that isn't visible in the composition, but is still there. Since we're just using a hint of coolness, it doesn't break the overall warmth. Now that the foreground is coming along, it's time for the part that ties the whole thing together, adding the light. Since this is acrylic, we have to layer to get full opacity. I'm going to start by adding in titanium white and just a hint of cadmium yellow as the sun's reflection. This is way too bright, but this is just a supporting layer to help the final layer shine. Once that dries, I can add more cadmium yellow medium into the mix and get that beautiful, intense reflection that's not dulled by the colors underneath. We're going to repeat that all over the waves, and as the light gets farther from the sun and closer to the shore, it moves from being a hot, bright yellow to a soft, glowing orange. To keep the mood and emotion, do your best to keep your brushwork soft. Think of all the rocks and details here as suggestions rather than statements. As all of the light comes together, this is where I find the true magic of painting a moody landscape. Here's where all the colors feel like they're flowing into each other, the light makes sense, the brushwork has a gentle rhythm, and the entire painting is working together. At this stage, we can take off the tape, which is my favorite part, and see how it turned out. And here it is, the final moody landscape. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed painting this with me, check out my other painting tutorials on the channel as well as my other art tips and tricks videos. Don't forget to grab your free ebook on acrylics, and happy painting!